Amazing moment. Black girl rescues drowning stranger. Discover the surprising billionaire secret. Maya Johnson stood at the edge of the community pool, the sun beating down on her shoulders like an unwelcome hand. She'd spent the day watching over a gaggle of children, their laughter piercing the thick summer air. To adults, she was just another kid, but Maya felt like a guardian, even if she was barely more than a child herself. Her heart raced, not from the heat, but from the weight of expectations that seemed far too heavy for her 14 years. That weight transformed dramatically when a sudden splash broke the blissful sounds around her. A middle-aged man flailed in the deep end, his desperate shouts muffled by the water. Panic surged through Maya, her instincts propelling her forward. Voices screamed for help as bodies crowded at the edge of the pool, but all she could hear was the pounding of her own heart, drowning out the raucous crowd. Without a moment's hesitation, she dove in. The cold water enveloped her, a stark contrast to the heat above. "Can I do this?" The thought flickered through her mind. But as she fought against the water, her resolve clenched tighter. With powerful strokes, she reached the man and grasped his arm, feeling the weight of his body pull her down as he gasped for air. Fear danced through her, mingling with anxiety and doubt. What if she couldn't pull him up? What if they both went under? This wasn't just about being brave. This was about unexpected expectations crashing together. The fact that no one had anticipated her breaking into action tightened the knot in her stomach. As his life force slipped from his fingertips, she summoned every ounce of power within herself, dragging him to the surface. Greeted by a gasp of air and collective disbelief as they broke into the light, chaos erupted on the pool deck. Bystanders pulled them out, and suddenly, everyone was talking about her, that brave girl and her heroics. Maya's heart sank beneath the shallow accolades. She merely reacted. She hadn't set out to be a hero. As news of her actions flooded the community, unveiling her as a symbol of bravery, she felt each word choke her more than the water ever could. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The attention turned from the thrilling rescue to discomforting scrutiny. Conversations about her background swirled around like a storm. Questions about her intellect, her potential. Did she deserve the praise? Did she even belong here? Within her family, which held steadfast in love, her mother and brother showered her with support, but the noise of her community pushed her toward loneliness. As more eyes fixated on her, she felt the burden of representing something she never asked for. Digging deeper, she discovered the man she saved was linked to her father, a connection steeped in shadows and unspoken legacies. The knowledge that her father had mentored this businessman tugged at Maya, whispering of potential she had yet to mine. With each revelation, the dichotomy of expectation and reality loomed larger. Should she embrace the spotlight, or honor the humility taught by her family? Pushing through that tipping point felt agonizingly close, yet impossibly distant, straining her identity. Caught in an internal tempest, the echoes of her father's legacy filled her mind. Could she navigate this labyrinth of expectation without losing herself in it? The pressure mounted like a gathering storm, threatening to drown her dreams and identity in an ocean of circumstance. Here she stood, not just as a hero, but as a girl at a crossroads, a point that could redefine everything she thought she knew about who she was and who she was meant to be. And in that moment of swirling uncertainty, with the shadows of expectations heavy at her back, Maya knew this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. Maya spent the following days in a fog of lightness and heaviness. Each time she stepped outside or entered school, it was as if the world had drawn back a curtain, illuminating her in a harsh spotlight. Conversations flared up about her bravery, her potential, the girl who saved a life. But beneath the surface of that admiration, a growing restlessness gnawed at her. As she lay awake at night, Maya wrestled with the whispers of self-doubt that chased away sleep. Sleepless hours turned into silent rituals of questioning. What does a hero look like? She pondered. Do I even fit that mold? Waves of conflicting emotions crashed within her. The responsibility felt suffocating, while the desire to prove herself flickered as a distant spark. Her father's legacy loomed large, shadowed by the expectations that came from saving a drowning man. In the midst of this chaos, an unexpected opportunity emerged. A local community center reached out, asking if she would participate in a youth leadership program. The flyer arrived slotted under her front door, inscribed with bold letters, "Step into your power." At first, she crumpled it in her hand, irritated by the clash between the call to action and the storm churning in her mind. Yet, part of her ignited at the idea. Here was a chance to explore what leadership truly meant, on her own terms. With her mother's encouragement, she decided to attend the first meeting. The room was filled with young people, each carrying a different burden of trauma or triumph, all bonded by the desire to grow. As she introduced herself, the weight of her recent accolades pressed against her chest. "I saved someone," she said hesitantly, "but I don't feel like a hero." A silence fell momentarily over the group. Then, slowly, others began to share their own moments of fear, failure, or moments of unintended bravery. There, surrounded by stories resonating with her own struggles, Maya felt a rush of understanding. The burden of her identity shifted, now flush with the sense that courage was not about accolades, but about confronting one's own reality. As the weeks passed and the meetings continued, she forged connections that allowed her to peel back layers of self-imposed limitation. Maya discovered her own voice both as a listener and a speaker. Led by a formidable mentor named Clara, the discussions ranged from handling peer pressure to setting personal boundaries. Every session became a reflection of her evolving self, unveiling skills she hadn't recognized before. It was within this environment, thriving with vulnerability and growth, that a new determination seized her. Yet, as she learned about herself, Maya also faced the reality of earlier revelations regarding her father's past. What had once seemed like a mere connection to the man she saved began to take on a more complex flavor. Discussions about her father came to the forefront among classmates eager to understand the background of the hero's daughter. Despite her evolving sense of self, the fear of becoming just a footnote in her father's story remained a weight. An instructor encouraged her to address these feelings directly and frame a personal narrative. With resolute clarity, she penned down her thoughts about the rescue. It was cathartic, yet raw. Stripped of embellishments, it read like a declaration of her struggle between living up to external expectations and carving out her destiny. But just as she started to embrace her newfound perspective, the heavy tug of reality resurfaced when the business connection to her father appeared once more. The man she saved, rumored to be instrumental in local development projects, issued an invite for a public speaking event aimed at celebrating community heroes. Suddenly, she was faced with an unavoidable choice: to step onto that stage and share her voice or retreat back into herself, forever cloaked in the narrative carved out by others. With her heart pounding in her chest, Maya stood before the mirror one evening, wrestling with the decision looming ahead. The winds of uncertainty swirled around her, but those days of self-discovery anchored her. As she took a deep breath, she realized that either choice would define her, echoing deeply into the cavern of her identity. This moment would either seal her fate or lift her from the confines of expectation. And in that pivotal pause, the question loomed as daunting as ever. Would she step into the light as her own person, or hide in the shadows of her past? With eyes narrowed against the storm, she sensed that the time had come to face the audience. The day of the public speaking engagement arrived, and the air felt thick with pressure. The venue, a local auditorium, buzzed with people excited to witness the stories of so-called heroes. The spotlight bore down on Maya as she entered, each step echoing a mix of dread and anticipation. The walls, adorned with photographs of past honorees, reminded her of the lives celebrated. In her gut, she felt an unsettling recognition. She was more than just a face in the crowd now. As the event progressed, Maya sat among the other participants, each showcasing their stories with confidence, their words woven with threads of pain and triumph. Clara, her mentor, had urged her to prepare for this moment, to not merely retell her experience, but to reflect on who she truly was beyond her father's shadow. Yet self-doubt crept in, whispering unsettling questions. Would the audience really see her? Or would they only see the hero's daughter? When her name was finally called, Maya felt paralyzed. As she stood and walked toward the stage, she fought the urge to turn back. Each step felt monumental, steeped in the possibility of rejection or acceptance. The stage loomed before her, a platform set against the backdrop of her fears and aspirations. Once in front of the microphone, she scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face in the sea of eager eyes. Her courage faltered as she felt their expectations pressing against her. Yet, amid the applause, she recalled the stories shared among her peers, the tales of vulnerability that had revealed their strengths. Drawing upon them, she steadied her breath. She began with honesty, recounting her experience of saving a life. But she didn't stop there. "I was scared," she admitted. "I didn't feel like a hero. And I still don't. I'm still figuring out who I am." The audience shifted, murmurs rippling through the crowd. Yet she pressed on, feeling the power of her truth accumulate like a wave. Maya spoke of burden, of living under the weight of expectations that weren't hers to carry. She highlighted her commitment to defining her path amid the shadows of her father's legacy, declaring with newfound clarity, "My story doesn't end with just being known for saving someone. It begins with my choice to embrace who I am, flaws and all." Waves of murmurs washed over her words, and in the whispers, she heard empathy, understanding. Perhaps the journey through her father's shadow wouldn't diminish her, but illuminate her own story. With each word, she discovered something deeper within. Her voice resonated not just with the audience, but echoed back to the parts of herself that longed for recognition. Confronted with the unpredictability of acceptance, Maya ended her speech not with finality, but a challenge. Let us all write our own narratives. Let us step into the light of our own choosing. The applause that followed felt like a torrent, sweeping away her fears. As she stepped off the stage, exhilaration coursed through her. She had faced not just the audience, but the doubts that clung to her. It was liberating to know she could exist not as a shadow, but as a bright presence, capable of shifting the narrative being told. Yet, as she mingled with the crowd and received congratulations, a new tension settled over her. How would she ensure this growth didn't vaporize in the face of new challenges? A message popped up on her phone just as she was about to leave, a single sentence from the man she saved. "Your words were powerful, Maya. Let's discuss how we can amplify your voice in a bigger way." What did that mean? Was she ready to step into this new dimension of her identity? The exhilaration of the stage faded into a new current of uncertainty. She had captured one moment. But was she prepared for the consequences of embracing a path that beckoned her further from the shadows she had just begun to navigate? Maya stared at her phone, the glow illuminating her doubting eyes. "Amplify your voice," echoed in her mind, resonating both like an invitation and a challenge. Would stepping further into the spotlight derail her newly found sense of identity, or conversely bolster it? How could she navigate this uncharted territory without losing herself in the process? She took a deep breath, the thrill of addressing the crowd still fresh, but the uncertainty of her next step threatened to drown her enthusiasm. Should I even engage further? She wondered, feeling both elated and exposed. The applause had forged a sense of acceptance, but this was another leap, yet another moment to confront the fears bubbling beneath her surface. Just as she slid her phone into her pocket, Clara approached, her face alight with pride. "You were incredible, Maya." The vulnerability in your words made the room pulse with connection. Each compliment felt like a balm to her anxieties, a reminder of the strength she had within her. Clara continued, her voice warm yet probing. "What's next for you? You have an opportunity now. Don't let it slip away." Maya's insides twisted. "I received a message from the man I saved. He wants to meet to discuss," amplifying my voice. The embarrassment of admitting her uncertainty washed over her, and she hesitated to fully embrace the significance of that moment. Was she truly qualified to step into a larger arena when the world felt so vast? Clara's eyes sparkled as she processed Maya's words. "This is it. You have a unique story, and people need to hear what you have to say. Don't hold back. Just be yourself." But amidst Clara's encouragement, the shadow of self-doubt loomed larger. But what if I fail? What if they only want the hero's story, not who I am? The words tumbled out before Maya could hold them back, revealing the fresh scars where her confidence still felt fragile. "If they want just the story, then they'll miss the heart of it. You are so much more than a single act of bravery. You can inspire others to share their true selves, just as you did on stage tonight. But you must be willing to step into that ring, not just once, but continuously." Clara's unwavering belief struck a deep chord within her. As they continued their conversation, arrangements were made for Maya to meet with the man who had reached out. Instinctively, she began to formulate a plan. She envisioned how she might share her thoughts, how she might navigate the potential pitfalls of elevating her voice. Each plan felt like an anchor, pulling her away from the chaotic waters of uncertainty. Still, with every idea came a new wave of questions. That evening, as the sun sank into twilight, she sat alone in her small apartment, the scent of lavender wafting from a candle flickering on the table. She took out her notebook, pen trembling in her hand as she brainstormed what she wanted to communicate. Paragraphs of self-discovery filled the pages, coupled with disjointed musings of expectations and fears. Words poured out, sketching the outline of her emerging identity. But amid the frenzy of creativity, a dark whisper tugged at her focus, swirling questions of worth and identity. Would her voice be strong enough in a world that sometimes seemed deaf to genuine narratives? What if this exposure exposed more than she intended, and it became too difficult to navigate her own reality? The following morning arrived with a mingling of excitement and anxiety. She realized that this meeting could be the catalyst for her growth or another stumbling block. Did she dare step forward, or would she retreat back into the known, where shadows offered comfort? As thoughts of the meeting filled her mind, Maya's resolve coalesced. She would face the potential for failure, but only in doing so could she challenge herself to grow. The time had come to face the response of a world beyond her own reflections. Would she seize the opportunity to redefine her story, or would she back down? With determination lining her thoughts, she prepared for the encounter, sensing that it would lead her down a path not just of affirmation, but confrontation, as she sought to claim her identity amidst the rising tide. But as she clenched her notebook, a message arrived from the man she saved, a single line that unraveled her tightly wound bravery. "Are you ready to take the next step in a way that will change everything?" Would she be ready to embrace that challenge, or would it unravel the very foundation she had begun to build? Maya took a steadying breath and pushed herself out of bed, the flickering candle reflecting her resolve. The morning outside her window was bright, painted with possibilities but dark with her doubts. She could feel the weight of the notebook nestled in her bag, full of potential yet threatening to crush her under its expectations. Today was the day. She would meet Marcus, the man whose life she had saved, and the thought of it sent her heart racing. She headed to the cafe where they had arranged to meet, the vibrant energy of the city buzzing around her. People bustled about, moving with purpose, each one lost in their own world. Maya, on the other hand, felt like she was floating just above the chaotic reality. grappling with the momentous weight of what lay ahead. What if he only saw her as a hero? What if he asked her to tell the story of that day over and over, isolating her triumph to a single act, rather than acknowledging the journey that followed? The air grew heavy with her anticipation. Could she articulate her truth, the blend of bravery and vulnerability that coexisted within her? Did she have the right to shift the narrative away from the spectacular into something deeply personal? Arriving at the cafe, she spotted Marcus sitting at a corner table with an unfocused gaze on the steam rising from his coffee cup. He looked up as she approached, and a warm smile creased his face. Maya felt the tension in her shoulders loosen slightly, but doubt still braided through her resolve. She introduced herself, and with that simple exchange, a veil was lifted. The two shared a world built on risk and survival. "Maya, thank you for coming," Marcus said, his tone sincere yet serious. She nodded, sensing the gravity hanging in the air between them. What came next would demand her utmost honesty. "Your story inspired me," Marcus continued as he leaned forward slightly. "When I heard about your bravery, I knew I needed to meet you, but I want to know more. Who are you beyond that moment?" Maya felt the words bubble beneath her skin. She wanted to tell him everything, yet the comfort of obscurity whispered in her ear. "I'm still figuring that out," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be just the girl who saved someone." Marcus nodded, the understanding in his eyes disarming her. "That's powerful. Many people are defined by a single act, but I see a journey in you, a story worth sharing." His words ignited something within her, a flicker of courage battling the looming shadows of self-doubt. Maya took a sip of her coffee to buy time, her thoughts racing. This was not just an opportunity to share her story. It was a chance to forge her identity anew. "How?" she asked, the question trembling on her lips. "Let's explore this together. I can help you craft your narrative so that it reflects who you are at your core, not just what happened that day. You're more than a headline, Maya. You're a voice that can resonate." Hearing those words did not diminish her fears, but rather intensified them. Was she prepared for the spotlight? Yet, as he spoke, her heart beat in tandem with a newfound determination. The thread of self-discovery began to weave through her thoughts, crafting a narrative where she wasn't simply a participant, but an architect of her destiny. As their conversation deepened, she discovered layers of herself she had yet to tap into. Marcus shared insights and experiences, recounting the ways his past molded his present. In this exchange, she glimpsed a landscape of possibilities, each revealing a different aspect of her identity, her passions, her vulnerabilities, her dreams. But as the conversation progressed, layers of her apprehension unfolded as well. Was she truly ready to pair such raw honesty with public exposure? What if, in the process, she discovered parts of herself that felt unworthy of the light? "I'd like to help you share your voice with the world," Marcus said, excitement threading through his tone. "But it'll take more than just stories. It'll take vulnerability and bravery. Are you willing to put yourself out there?" The question echoed in her mind, a staccato rhythm punctuating each beat of her heart. Was she willing to leap into this opportunity, knowing that the courage required would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself? Suddenly, the weight of the conversation pressed down on her, anchoring her in that moment of truth. She felt both terrified and exhilarated, envisioning the duality of risks and rewards curling around her as tightly as a second skin. Maya closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and chose her next words carefully. "Yes, I'll take that risk, but I want to ensure my voice remains authentic. My story isn't lost to just the headlines." Just as she began to map her thoughts for the future, a notification pinged, lighting up the screen of her phone. Another message from Marcus, one that promised to alter their path entirely. "If we're going to do this, we need to set clear intentions. Are you prepared for the pushback that will inevitably come?" As she read the message, uncertainty flooded her senses once more. What awaited her on this journey, and would she be brave enough to hold her ground amidst the chaos? The stakes were rising, and the future held both promise and peril. And as she opened her mouth to respond, a realization hit her. This was not just the beginning of a new chapter. It was an invitation to become something entirely different. Would she rise to meet it? Or would she falter in the face of the very truth she sought to express? Maya's heart raced, the weight of Marcus's message cutting deep into her thoughts. She stared at the screen, fingers poised to type, but her mind swam in uncertainty. The clarity she'd felt moments before began to dissolve under the pressure of potential backlash. What sort of pushback could she expect? The thought hung dimly above her like a storm cloud. As she gathered her bearings, Marcus leaned back in his chair, sensing her internal conflict. It's not just about sharing your journey, Maya. It's also about the potential criticism. His voice held a gravity that anchored her. Are you prepared for that? Once again, her past echoed warnings of vulnerability, the harsh critiques she'd faced from peers throughout her youth, the relentless voice in her head that questioned her worth. Could she really offer her authentic self to the world, knowing it might be received with scorn? I need time to think about it, she finally responded, the hesitation slipping from her mouth before she had a chance to harness it. Marcus nodded, his expression one of encouragement rather than concern. That's okay. It's a huge decision. But remember, every voice has value. Yours can inspire, heal, and illuminate the way for others. Maya reflected on that as she took a mental step back from the brink of her fears. Inspiration had, after all, been the catalyst that saved Marcus. Perhaps she did have something of worth to offer. Perhaps her story held the power to resonate, to connect with others who felt lost in the shadows of expectation and self-doubt. The cafe around them buzzed with life and urgency, a juxtaposition against the whirlwind brewing in her mind. She observed the people around her, their laughter, their conversations, their ambitions. Each one carried a story, yet here she was, contemplating whether hers was valid enough to share. In that moment, the sensation of truth solidified within her. It's about more than just me, she began tentatively, gathering strength with each word. It's about showing others they too can overcome their doubts. But I still have to find my footing first. Exactly, Marcus said, his eyes lighting up. Sharing your vulnerabilities can create connection. It gives others permission to be real with themselves. But this must come from you, your truth. Your terms. Maya felt the urge to embrace her fears. The weight of the notebook didn't have to crush her. Instead, it could be the foundation upon which she built her new identity. Let's do it, Maya finally declared, each word gaining clarity with conviction. I'm ready, but I want to start slow. I need to lay down the groundwork first. As Marcus agreed, excitement flickered in his eyes. They spent the next few hours fleshing out her past, dissecting moments she'd glossed over or tucked away. Together, they began to construct the framework of her narrative, stripping it of pretense and decoration. Gradually, it became evident to Maya how intricate and rich her life had been, even amidst the chaos. Her tenacity, her moments of grace amid struggle, they were all parts of her identity she'd disregarded in her attempt to flee the limelight. As they delved deeper, she found herself unveiling layers she didn't know existed. Her talent for storytelling surfaced, weaving threads of connection between her experiences, allowing them to breathe and resonate. But suddenly, a sense of unease crept in as she opened up about her childhood, detailing experiences she'd long buried. Speaking her truth brought discomfort, a lingering shame that gnawed at her. Is this really me? She murmured, fighting the tide of doubt rising within. Yes, it is, Marcus encouraged gently. You're not defined by your fears. You're defined by your choice to face them. Feeling the sting of emotion, Maya nodded, brushing aside her vulnerability with determination. If this was the path to understanding herself, to reshaping her narrative, she couldn't shy away. Days passed in a blur of brainstorming sessions and detailed outlines, a growing, fervent energy igniting within her. But as her confidence burgeoned publicly, an unsettling thought simmered beneath the surface. What would happen if those she feared the most responded negatively? One evening, while working late, a message from an old acquaintance popped onto her screen. A reminder of a past she thought she'd moved on from. An encounter that had left her feeling devalued and powerless. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, igniting old insecurities. You think you can just rewrite your story? You'll never escape who you really are. Maya's breath caught. Did this person have the power to unravel her newfound resolve? Could the words of one individual drown out the courage she had been nurturing? Tension gripped her as she grappled with how to respond. This was that moment, where she could either retract, fall into the shadows, or choose to stand firm, emboldened by her truth. The stakes were higher than before, the doubts louder. She felt the gravity of her journey mount with each passing moment. How she responded now could shift everything. Would she crumble or rise to the challenge? And as she hesitated on the precipice of choice, a truth echoed back at her, stronger than before. This journey was not merely about sharing her past. It had become a relentless pursuit to conquer her demons, both internal and external. Would she harness her strength and face the backlash, or allow the shadows of doubt to reclaim their hold over her? The moment of clarity loomed, and it was about to challenge everything she thought she knew about herself. Maya's fingers hovered above the keyboard, every thought a weight pulling her deeper into a well of indecision. Marcus's words echoed in her mind, a steady reminder of the duality she now faced. She could either offer the world her authentic narrative, or retreat into the silence of fear, shrouded in the expectations that had shaped her for too long. All right, she murmured to herself, summoning the fire within. Let's think this through. She took a deep breath, forced herself to not dwell on the past. Instead, she targeted her focus on the message she had received, tracking its emotional pull like a compass pointing toward her fears. Who was this person to dictate her narrative? Flashbacks of judgmental faces from her youth rushed back. Quick to judge, faster to criticize, habitual in their neglect of kindness. Yet here she was, willingly stepping into the spotlight. Maya's fingers finally danced on the keys, drafting a response that pulsed with newfound resolve. No, I can rewrite my story. I am not defined by your perception of me. As she pressed send, she felt an exhilarating rush. The declaration felt like a baptism, radical and redemptive. She was reclaiming her voice. The hours that followed were a mixture of exhilaration and dread. Every ping of her phone sent her heart racing. What would the response be? Would her courage ignite more flames of criticism, or would it inspire? Each moment in that limbo felt interminable. Time twisted as she oscillated between anticipation and nervousness. When the notification finally came, she grimaced, expecting the worst. It was a simple, okay. A breath she hadn't realized she was holding escaped her. In that instant, a wave of clarity surged through her. She had initiated her journey. One small step at a time, she would rewrite her narrative, not for others, but for herself. The next few days migrated into a fervor of creativity. With Marcus guiding her, she began crafting a series of personal essays. Each piece dug deeper into her childhood, adolescence, and the transformative moments that forced her to confront her weaknesses. Slowly, she stitched together pieces of her life with threads of raw honesty. However, as the narratives came alive, doubts remained like ominous shadows, clawing at her confidence. She found herself revisiting the memory of rejection, a scene from high school where she had bravely shared her artwork with the class, only to be met with laughter and mockery. The insidious nature of that memory wanted to hijack her thoughts even now. Was she really brave enough to draw back the curtain on her vulnerabilities? As she meticulously wrote and rewrote, all too aware of her propensity for perfectionism, a window opened in her mind. Her imperfections could serve as a conduit for connection. She didn't need to be flawless. She could be authentic, a reflection of her true self. "Maya, every story has moments that aren't polished," Marcus reminded her during one of their brainstorming sessions. "Those are often the moments that resonate most with people." His steady gaze met hers, a gentle nudge urging her forward. With each new draft, she felt something shifting within her. The intense fear began to recede, replaced with an ardor to share those stories that had often been muted. It wasn't just about vulnerability. It was about courage. The courage to face herself, and in turn face the world. And yet, as she made strides in her storytelling endeavor, a text from Marcus pulled her back to the present. "We've made significant progress," it read, "but I believe we need to refine your approach. Your voice is powerful, but it must resonate as authentically as possible. You still have to be ready for criticism." His words lingered, a reminder that growth often intersects with discomfort. How could she fortify herself against the barrage of judgments she was certain to attract? Maya took a long look in the mirror that evening, searching for the person she wanted to present, not confined to her insecurities, but emboldened and unapologetically real. Her resolve hardened. In this endeavor, each spark of doubt would fuel her fire. The moment of truth lay just ahead, nestled within the tension between her aspirations and the fear of exposure. As she prepared to unveil her stories, a new wave of anticipation washed over her. Would she embrace the vulnerability needed to share her narrative fully, or hold back, fearful of what might come next? The decision loomed, tantalizingly close, and she could feel the pulse of choice thrum in her veins. The next phase awaited as she stepped closer to a reality where courageous truths could redefine her future. With her heart steady, Maya opened her laptop again, ready to navigate the imminent crossroads. The moment was approaching, and it would either establish her or break her. Would she embrace the tumultuous journey ahead, or would fear drag her back into the shadows she had emerged from? Maya's fingers hesitated over the keyboard once more, uncertainty gripping her. She had decided to share her story, but the weight of her resolve pressed down heavily. As she set to work on her newest essay, her mind replayed Marcus's words. She had to refine her approach. It was becoming increasingly clear that this was a pivotal moment. She needed to sink or swim. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, pushing back against the tide of doubt that threatened to drown her before she could even begin. Writing was not just a profession for her, it was a form of self-therapy. With each keystroke, she peeled back layers of her existence, exposing the truths she had long kept hidden. The screen flickered as she typed the first sentence. At 16, I thought I understood fear. This was her raw entry point, the realization that her life had been a series of choices shadowed by trepidation. But this time, she was determined to energize every word with her spirit, channeling her pain into power. Each phrase conjured fragments of her past. She recalled nights spent agonizing over her artistic expression, the laughter of her peers echoing in her mind like an incessant metronome. The faint sting of that ridicule lingered, yet there was something invigorating about the act of reflecting on her battle scars. She envisioned herself as a warrior, battling critics while armed with the unyielding truth. Maybe it's time, she thought, to flip the narrative. Maya's voice began to crystallize through the noise of her memories, transforming uncertainty into clarity. She recalled her mother's words, "You own your story. No one can take that from you." It was finally time for Maya to believe that truth, to translate those words into her reality. But with every keystroke came flashes of paralyzing self-doubt, each taunting voice from her past rearing its head and attempting to lure her back into the abyss. Still, she pressed on. The excitement of uncovering her authentic self began to overshadow the fear. She was crafting not merely tales, but bridges, connections between her inner struggles and the world that awaited to resonate with her honesty. She saw the potential for her experiences to hold weight, for people to glean strength from her vulnerabilities. What if, she wondered, my story could ignite a flame in someone else's heart? But then, a sudden wave of anxiety crashed over her. What if her words were met with indifference? What if the world failed to understand her message? Each what if gripped her thoughts, threatening to entangle her once again in the chains of her insecurities. It was in that moment of rising panic that her phone buzzed, a notification drawing her attention. It was Marcus, and the text simply read, "Remember, the critics cannot drown your voice unless you let them." His words were buoyant, like a lifeline thrown at sea. Renewed purpose surged through her. Maya realized that her internal battle with fear was merely the precursor to the external challenges she would face. The real test lay in how she would stand firm against the storm of critique upon her public unveiling. Maya paused, taking another steadying breath. She was ready to embrace the discomfort that might come and learn from it. She knew that her narrative could offer solace and validation to others like her, struggling with their own battles of self-doubt. As she adjusted her seating position, purpose aligned with her inner strength. She began to type again, weaving her fear into her essay as a powerful theme, acknowledging that confronting this emotion might just be the catalyst for her growth. The room around her dimmed as dusk settled outside, providing a gentle reminder that natural cycles of darkness preceded illumination. She completed another draft, feeling proud, yet anxious. Each essay was like a crack in the dam, allowing her authenticity to seep through. Finally, as she saved the document titled Essays of a Survivor, a rumble of thunder echoed in the distance. The universe felt alive, conspiring to support her transformation. The intertwining of her past experiences and future aspirations, creating an electricity that buzzed in the air. Maya looked toward the window, considering how this could all culminate. The path to unveiling her stories loomed larger than ever, but so did her desire to step into the light. What revelations would come from her courage? What might she discover about herself in the process? With new determination, she closed her laptop, exhilaration mingling with uncertainty. The time for reckoning was fast approaching, and she could feel it in her bones. The moment had come for her to bridge the leap between induction and revelation. There was no turning back. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the cool evening air, "I'll embrace the world." But deep down she sensed the challenge ahead was profound, new fears yet to be confronted. Did she have the resources to withstand the scrutiny? She would soon find out. Maya woke to the sound of rain tapping against her window, an ever-present rhythm coaxing her from sleep. The stark chill of the morning air was reminiscent of the uncertainty that hung over her head. Today was the day she had subconsciously dreaded, yet fiercely anticipated, a paradox that mirrored her own internal struggle. She slipped out of bed, the blanket falling away like her insecurities. The reflection that met her in the bathroom mirror was one she no longer recognized. Gone was the girl shackled by fears of judgment. In her place stood a young woman determined to bear the depths of her existence. The fleeting brush of doubt still lingered, but she was learning to manage it, to coexist and forge forward. As she prepared breakfast, each clang of the pan echoed the growing resolve within her. She approached her writing with a fresh mindset, envisioning not merely a publication, but the construction of a bridge that connected her past to the present. With each bite of toast, ideas began to whirl in her mind, the words on the page transforming into her battle armor. The intermittent flashes of thunder mirrored her swirling thoughts. How would she present her narrative? She understood that her words could either empower or expose her. This was the crux of her journey. Perfection eluded her, but she was learning that imperfection was integral to authenticity. She resolved to share both the bitter and the sweet, creating a tapestry that acknowledged her pain, but also heralded her resilience. With her breakfast finished, Maya settled back into her workspace, and the world narrowed to the glow of her monitor. She opened her document, her heart racing as she reread her draft. On the surface, it was a simple narrative, yet she recognized its weight. Today would not merely be an exercise in writing, but a step into a new version of herself. With fingers poised above the keyboard, she recalled the times her fear had dictated her choices. What if I fail? She had often asked. But now she considered a new question. What if I succeed? This internal dialogue was the catalyst she needed, transforming her trepidation into a fervent belief in her own journey. She typed furiously, allowing her vulnerabilities to grace the page unfiltered. The words flowed like a river. In every moment of trepidation lies a spark of courage waiting to ignite. The more she wrote, the more she accepted the chaotic dance of emotion that accompanied each memory. Maya relished the power in her clarity. She was not just a survivor, but a warrior, analyzing the battlefield of her life. Interruptions came in the form of notifications. Emails from a literary agent she had reached out to, a comforting message from Marcus, and an invitation from an old friend to reconnect. Each ping tugged at her focus, distracting her from the mission at hand. Yet, post-essay, she would confront these external engagements. For now, her narrative beckoned. After what felt like hours, she pressed save again, satisfaction washing over her. Maya took a step back from her work and sank into her chair, panting with excitement and exhaustion. The storm outside had calmed as she had unearthed the unwavering truth woven deep in her identity. The next step would be to seek feedback, but fear nagged at her. What if her words drove away those she sought to inspire? Then, an idea sparked in her mind. She wouldn't just submit her writing to one source. Rather, she could share her draft with a trusted friend from her college writing group who could provide an honest perspective. This thought filled her with renewed anticipation. It would not only be a test of her courage, but a practice in seeking collaboration and growth. Maya gazed out the window, the clouds parting to reveal a soft glow of blue sky, the light signifying potential. She was entering an uncharted territory of vulnerability and openness, ready to face the inevitable critique. But just as excitement surged through her, a deeper concern took root. Could she truly handle the backlash? The thought slipped through her mind, sowing seeds of uncertainty. With a manic energy, she debated next steps, anxiously weighing the risk against her desire to unfold this chapter of her life. Clarity can often follow chaos, she reminded herself as she opened her laptop again to draft an email, the words forming on the screen unleashing another wave of determination. As she pressed send, a liberation washed over her, a small but significant leap toward her unveiling. What awaited her on the other side of submission? Would the feedback drum up newfound fears, or would it serve as the wind beneath her wings? Either way, she welcomed the challenge. The edge of uncertainty loomed again, but this time she would step forward rather than retreat. Maya had made her decision, but moments of doubt lurked in the background, waiting to unravel her momentum. The real journey was about to begin, and she braced herself for the next storm, one that carried the promise of potential breakthroughs and soul-crushing doubts. What awaited her as she ventured into the world and unveiled her truth? Maya stood at the threshold of the coffee shop where she was to meet Marcus, her heart thudding against her ribcage. The rain-soaked streets mirrored her tumultuous thoughts, a blend of excitement and anxiety clashing within her as she prepared to present her manuscript. This was not merely a meeting. It was the unveiling of her renewed identity to a world that had yet to witness her evolution. As she entered the bustling cafe, the warm aroma of coffee enveloped her, anchoring her senses. She scanned the room and spotted Marcus at a corner table, a proud smile stretched across his face. His presence was reassuring, a testament to her journey thus far. Today was her moment, a culmination that would test all she had learned and transformed into. "Here you are," Marcus exclaimed as she approached, his enthusiasm infectious. "I can't wait to hear what you've crafted." Maya settled into the seat opposite him, her manuscript nestled tightly in her grasp. Deep breaths steadied her nerves as she prepared to share her truth, one that had taken months to clarify. "I want you to see how I've combined my past with who I am now," she began, her voice steadying with each word that escaped her lips. As she unfolded the pages before him, she felt her insecurities begin to peel away. Here was her story, raw, unrefined, yet undeniably her own. Marcus's attentive gaze never faltered as she spoke of her fears, her triumphs, and the heartfelt desire to redefine the concept of heroism. Each sentence dripped with authenticity, revealing the brave young woman determined to tell her story beyond that single act of heroism. The more she talked, the more she felt her confidence solidify. "This is brilliant, Maya," he said, leaning forward, his eyes sparkling with admiration. "You've tapped into something powerful. It's not just about the rescue. It's about the journey to self-acceptance and the courage to claim your voice." Every word of his validation sent waves of warmth radiating through her, filling the empty spaces left by doubt. This moment was not merely validation. It was a confirmation of her growth, a testament to her perseverance. The shadow of her past no longer felt overpowering. Instead, it became a backdrop against which her light shone brightly. But as she dissected her narrative with him, a familiar shadow crept in, whispering reminders of moments when she felt less than enough. "What if they don't accept it?" she asked him, vulnerability squeezing at her throat. "What if this is just a temporary high?" Marcus leaned in closer, his expression unwavering. "If you let fear dictate your narrative, you'll never know the impact your story can have. You have the power to inspire others. Offer your truth to the world. The reception will follow." His words ignited something within her. She was no longer just the girl who saved a life. She was a young woman ready to shape her own destiny. The grasp of insecurity slipped from her mind as clarity took its place. With renewed determination, she committed to confronting any consequences her writing brought forth. The anticipation of critique transformed from dread into a challenge, a hurdle that promised growth. She was ready to embrace it all, the applause and the criticism, knowing they were part of her journey. Days turned into weeks as Maya immersed herself in rewriting her essay for submission. Each edit became a ritual, a cathartic release that shaped her narrative into something potent and relevant. Her identity unfurled further with every keystroke. Soon, the day arrived when she would present her story to an engaged audience. The venue buzzed with expectant energy as she stood backstage, enveloped in the comforting hum of anticipation. As she approached the podium, she could see familiar faces among the crowd. Marcus, her family, and friends. Every gaze urged her forward. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the spotlight, the warmth radiating against her skin. "I am not just a hero," she began, her voice cutting through the murmuring crowd. "I am a survivor, a storyteller, and I choose to share my narrative, not merely of the one moment I was thrust into the limelight, but the journey that has followed." Each word felt like a release. She was surrendering years of built-up anxiety and insecurities to the flow of honesty cascading out of her. Maya vulnerably spoke of her struggles and victories, intertwining her past experiences with future aspirations. With every shift in her tone, the weight of expectation faded, and she became entirely present in the moment. As she finished speaking, the sound of thunderous applause enveloped her, the echo resonating within her soul. She had faced not just the audience, but her doubts, and emerged victorious. In that moment, she knew she had reached a pivotal point in her journey. She was no longer just a reflection of others' expectations. She stood firmly in her identity, recognized and affirmed. Walking off the stage, the energy of the crowd surged around her, and each congratulatory voice reverberated a sense of unity. Maya had leaped beyond the shadows, emerging as a beacon of strength and authenticity. As she embraced Marcus, a thought gripped her. This was just the beginning. With clarity carved into her narrative, she felt a new purpose blossoming. Maya was equipped to take on the challenges ahead, harnessing her story to engage others in an authentic discourse about overcoming fear and claiming one's voice. And just as the applause marked her triumph, an unexpected message lit up her phone. A publisher interested in her essays. They had seen glimpses of something raw and real, and now the world was ready to support her journey. Maya felt her heart swell with reinvigorated hope, a solid confidence settling deep within her. She was ready to embark on this shared adventure with countless others, an opportunity to amplify her voice and foster connections beyond the confines of her past. She had not only faced the tides of her story, but she had conquered them, an indelible proof of her transformation. Now, as she gazed out toward the future, she understood that this was more than a personal achievement. It was an invitation to others who battled their shadows. Her heart pulsed with excitement at the thought. She would become a vessel of inspiration, proving that true strength lies in the stories we dare to share. Maya had risen. And so, for those who have followed her journey, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to support this journey of overcoming and empowerment. Don't wait even one more second to share.